So today I'd like to welcome special guest Steve Smith, former Oak Hill Academy coach. Coach, how are you doing?
Doing good.
And good, good. So we're gonna jump right into it. I guess the first question I have is when you started, what did people get wrong about you, and what were you trying to do when you first arrived on the scene at Oak Hill Academy?
Yeah, we were kind of maybe the first school to maybe look at basketball as a national thing. We traveled. You had DeMatha as a day school that was traveling. I remember watching DeMatha play back in the '70s, and when I grew up in Kentucky. But as far as like a situation like we had, a boarding school, a private school that would travel and play a national schedule, we were kind of the first ones to do it. So I think people looked at us as, what are they doing up there? What are they trying to prove and what are they trying to do? And we were in the business of helping kids. At the time, we had about 200 kids enrolled at Oak Hill, just normal students. And we wanted to get the word out there about the school and try to improve the school and enhance enrollment and so forth. So we went with basketball. The former president, I've had three bosses, but my first president was Robert Eisner. He looked at football and very expensive sport to start, basketball, and he decided to go with basketball. His son was the coach in the '70s, and they started with getting some kids from like the Washington D.C. area, Baltimore area, Richmond, Virginia, more of a local area to Oak Hill, and some kids out of North Carolina. And then when I took over in the mid '80s, we kind of branched out. The very first year I was there, we had a McDonald's All-American from New York City. So we started getting kids from other places besides just local. DC's not local, but it's 5-6 hours. It's in the state. And but we had international kids. We had kids from all over, after a few years after I took over. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And I think the perception that, people thought, what are they doing this for and why are they doing this? And are they doing it to make money? And we were doing it to enhance our school. We were doing it to help kids like we did all our other students that come to Oak Hill. Oak Hill is a boarding school, so everybody that comes there is a transfer student. And, it's not just a team. Not a lot of places have a team that they'll start a basketball team or a sports team, and all their other students are local students. All of our kids are from all over. We've got our student body is, even back then in the '80s, we had 10, 12 foreign countries where kids would come from internationally, and then we had kids from the U.S. from all over. So it was just an extension of our school and something that we wanted to promote, and thought that would help with enrollment and so forth.
Is it so they're a Baptist boarding school, right?
Right.
Oak Hill is
Southern Baptist.
like so. Would you say that it started out just like any ministry would, just trying to help kids that needed help, like a more stable environment?
Yes, and it was a school for the kids from the Blue Ridge Mountain area way back, and then they had even public school kids were bused in there from Grayson County in that area, and then it went straight private again, probably in the '40s, '50s, somewhere in there, 1940s, '50s, and it's been like that ever since. And but it's always been Southern Baptist affiliated. The kids go to church on campus. We have a Baptist church that's located on our campus for the community of Martha Wilson, and the kids have always gone there. And we take Bible classes during the school hours, as a class in the curriculum part of our school. So very much affiliated with the Southern Baptist, and it's always been that way.
So you can really say that's really God-driven then.
Yeah.
What would you say separated your prep model from everyone else's today that are trying to copy that today? Because I think when prep schools pop up and other things that are similar, I think they always look to what you guys did first.
Yeah, and hopefully that's the case. You have schools, I call them pop-up schools. They're here today, gone tomorrow. But, Oak Hill's been a school since 1878, so we've obviously done things the right way. And school's coming up on 150 years of existence. Even long before they had basketball, that we had a school, and we've had basketball since the middle 70s. So I would guess 50 of the 150 years, basically, we've had high level basketball, and it really grew. It started in the 80s, middle 80s, and to be to the level that it is now. And like I mentioned before, we were the first ones to do it, and now I can't tell you how many private schools have emulated what we did. And I've had coaches and administrators come up to me and say, "Hey, we started our school, model it after you guys." I've had people come to campus and sit down and visit with me and ask me how we started it, where we got our players from, what we had to do to get things going, and then they've gone on to have really good programs too. So we're in the business of helping others, not just ourselves. But as long as people do it the right way, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I know. I know. When we started our program 10 years ago, we came over there and started that relationship, and I really appreciated it, and I've really learned a lot from you since starting our program, and so I appreciate that.
I appreciate that too.
You've been around. You've been around elite talent and future NBA players, future pros. For people watching, what's the real difference between a high major player like O'Kill gets and someone normal?
Uh, they always ask me what makes one high level player better than another high level player. That's a question that I always answer with hard work and what the young man's made out of. Does he have the character to be a good player? Does he want to be a great player? Does he want to put in the time and the work that you have to do? It's a year-round deal now. It used to be kids would play 4 or 5 sports, and I'm not opposed to that either. But now to keep up, you've got to work out every day. You've got to keep training. You play AAU when you're not playing high school basketball. So it's like a year-round deal now to get yourself to where you want to compete with the best players. And man, I've had players that were low to mid Division One. I've had kids I thought were Division Two players, and they turned out to be much better players because of their work ethic and their character and their background with their family. Some are brought up and lucky enough to be brought up by 2-parent homes where they're, especially when they're inner city kids, and some don't have the luxury of that. Some don't have the luxury of being able to get to a gym all the time, but now they do. You can work out with trainers and AAU teams and other things during the off season to enhance your skill level. But you always got to grow as a player. That comes from hard work and desire and determination of wanting to be a good player, putting in the work and the time that you have to do to get to that level.
Do you see any players right now that are actually hurting their development by just these nuances of training and things of that nature?
Yeah,
That
I mean,
are sort of
I'm not opposed. When I got the kids back, when I first took over at Oak Hill in the 80s and 90s, I worked them out. There wasn't training. They didn't have trainers. So the kids I have kids in summer school. We'd work them out in summer. We'd work them out when they were there during the school year. We'd work them out in the mornings or in the evenings to get them some skill work. It doesn't sound correct, but I still think guys need to play 5-on-5, and guys need to be playing games, not necessarily AAU games, but they need to be playing, learning how to play with other good players. Because the game's a 5-on-5 game. It's not a one-on-one game. But I know you got to enhance your skill level too to play at that level. But everybody's gotten away from that. It used to be everybody played 5-on-5 pickup, and I still did that till the day I stopped coaching. We had individual workouts, and then we'd also play, and it wasn't restricted play like you'd have during the season. I would let them just play, and sometimes it'd be 4-on-4, sometimes it'd be 5-on-5, sometimes it'd be full court, sometimes it'd be half court, and but I think that's important too to play and not just do skill work all the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of my coaches look at me crazy in practice because I like to scrimmage a lot.
Yeah,
Um, I just feel like if the team's not meshing together and they're not playing well, that with the schedule that we're trying to play or the level that we're trying to get to over time, that we're never going to get there if we don't just keep working together
Right.
to play. Like,
Right.
I feel like a lot of the personal training and stuff is good for you mentally, but I feel like a lot of times guys don't really know the correct speed to go during the one-on-one trainings
Yeah.
to where it's actually going to help them anyway.
Right.
Uh, what do you think is more important today, like getting exposure or development?
Uh, I mean, I always would say development, but you do have to have the exposure, obviously, to get to the next level, and that's why kids go to schools like we have, and the private schools that travel, and like the EYBL league, the overtime league. I hear Adidas is starting a league. You go to holiday tournaments and Christmas tournaments. You go to showcases, and, weekend events where you try to get your players exposure. Um, it's changed. Recruiting's changed now because of the NIL, and you don't see as many coaches out there. When I first got to Oak Hill, we'd have 9, 10 coaches at every practice, and toward the end of my career, it'd be odd to see coaches at practice much. They come to some games and so forth, but it was NIL time, so it was basically they would see kids in the summer, offer them X amount of dollars to come to their programs, and the recruiting's completely changed. It used to be the coaches that would work the hardest would get the players, and now it's coaches with the most money get the players. So it's changed a lot, in the last 10 years.
Yeah. What do you think? Since you're tied into Nike and you're the commissioner of the Nike League, what's the biggest change that you've seen in grassroots basketball? Is it just the NIL or
Probably
like you said?
yeah, I think NIL. Of course, when you get to college, it's portal. I mean, people are going to 4 schools in 4 years. I think that's going to supposedly NCAA's putting in some rules. We'll see. Uh, Seems like when they put in rules and somebody takes them to court, they lose every time. So I don't know if they're going to do what they think they're going to do and be capable of doing that. It takes one lawsuit to change a rule, basically. And I haven't seen many instances where the NCAA goes to court and wins a case. So NIL is not going anywhere. These kids are going to be getting paid. Now they're going to be putting in rules to control it. They're going to put rules in to keep kids from transferring more than 2, 3 times in a career, where they're going every single year, going to the highest bidder. It's kind of hard not to allow that to happen. In the workforce, if it wasn't sports, you could bounce from job to job. People look at it differently when it's sports. They think it's the players manipulating the system, but they're trying to make money, and I don't blame them. This is probably the best money they'll ever make in their lives. A lot of them. The majority of them are not going to make the NBA, and the majority of them are not going to play overseas in Europe. Money, so they can make money in college now that they probably couldn't make at that level even. So it's changed a lot. I think that's probably the main change that I've seen in the last few years. I mean, even kids in high school are looking for situations that are the best for them. For where their parents can get the games and not be an expense and so forth. So I've noticed that even at the high school level.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's a trickle down effect, like with all this. Like, it's one thing if you're one of these guys who can really play, come in and change the landscape of a program,
Yeah,
like a big program like Duke, University of Florida, or whatever. But then it's a trickle down effect because then you have guys who are good enough to be on the team, but they don't really realize the level that they're at. And so then they think their automatic thing is they need to transfer. And that's what gets this transfer portal all clogged up from college all the way down. Like I'm right now trying to get all of my kids placed,
yeah,
but I won't be able to address it really till about mid next week because everybody wants to see who's going to stay, who's going to go,
yeah,
what position they need, and it's really just a big chaotic situation in some sense. And the fact that it's happening so late, like before, like 3 or 4 years ago, before NIL, we could probably get most of our guys placed before like May 1st.
yeah,
But now it's like going into the summer, and a lot of these schools, like some of them, have application deadlines that are way early, and so they're not bending to the basketball program. It doesn't matter; they're not Duke, so they're not just going to bend their rules so you
yeah.
can get an application in. So there's a lot of nuances to it. Um, what do parents completely misunderstand about NIL and recruiting right now, you think?
Yes, and I used to have kids. I encouraged them to sign early if they could. Now it's if you don't sign early, then you have the portal coming up in the spring. You've got all that going on. Coaches are trying to keep players that they have in their program. They're trying to poach other players. They don't look at high school kids till June sometimes. After the kid graduates. So the kids are in limbo, and I don't think they quite understand it. The parents don't understand that sometimes. They're like, they want a kid to have a scholarship right away. It's almost now, I retired in 2022, but I was telling the last class I had that year, I was telling my kids, I said, you need to sign with somebody, whoever offers you. And then if it doesn't work out, you can make a move the next year. Or if it does work out, you can move on to a bigger program. But you almost got to take anything that they give you as a scholarship. And if you can get into a situation where you're just in the system, and then you can start moving around, whether that's good or bad, but you almost have to do it that way. You see so many kids now going to low D1 schools or D2 schools, having a good year, and the next thing you know, they're playing at a Power 4 school, and they couldn't get that out of high school. But because they're a year older and maybe they were under recruited, and now they can up the ante a little bit and play at a higher level. It's changed. I think the parents are starting to figure it all out. When I retired, they didn't really know what was going on. I was trying to explain it to them, and I was saying, hey, you got 2 offers. You need to take one of these. If you don't take one of these in the fall, I don't know what you're going to get in the springtime, because you're going to have to wait till June probably. I had kids committing in July, after they graduated 2 months. They graduated in May, and then 2 months later, they finally got situated. And it's a scary situation for a kid, and his parents when you're in the middle of the summer, you don't have a scholarship yet. But you almost have to go that route with a lot of them, because that's the way the game's played now.
Yeah, I was doing some research, and they said only 3 to 4% of high school kids are going to get scholarships.
Yeah.
That's hard to imagine. And then I got to really thinking about it, and you almost, to be safe, have to play down a level.
Yeah.
Like, you may be good enough to play Division 1, but you need to stop thinking about that and just try to play Division 2 or NAI or anything like you said, because it's such a rat race to get to that now. Your only hope is to try to get to a good program, so then maybe you can get to the transfer portal later on.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
well, I'm going to kind of switch gears in a minute. What do you think is like a misconception or a lie that players are being told about recruiting? Like from like other places, like just kids going through the process. What do you think's like a misconception or like something they're being wrongly told about it that they don't understand?
Yeah. That's a good question. Because they're told a lot of things.
They are.
Excuse me. They might be true. They might not be true. But I used to tell my kids when they were recruited, I can find out as the coach. I can find out who's in the program. I can find out who they're recruiting, who else they're recruiting at your position. I can find out the real deal because I had some connections, and they didn't. They were just going on what they've been told, and they're told a lot of things in the recruiting process. Now it's changed, like I mentioned. They used to have the in-home visits. They would come up to Oak Hill. I'd sit in there with them because their parents weren't there a lot of the times because we were boarded. And, I'd ask all the questions that they needed to hear. Then I'd call the parents up and tell them what I thought. I wouldn't tell them where to go, but I'd tell them, here's what they're saying. Sometimes I'd talk to the parents before the visit to find out what they wanted me to ask them, because you have, parents are different, and each kid's different. But I don't know if there's one or two things that they're told that I know back in the day it was always about playing time. Schools will come and say you're going to start. I was a little leery of that, and when a Power 4 school comes in and tells the kid he's going to start, and then he gets there and he doesn't start, that's a misnomer a lot of times, and it affects those guys because they're like, well, I was told I was going to start. I was told I was going to be the guy. I was told I was, this and that, and now I'm sitting on the bench over here. So that's tough to swallow. But and it's hard to get all that beforehand because you got to get there and start working out. And the coach got to get a better feel for you. He's seen you play games and watched you a few times, but they haven't been with you every day, day in and day out, so they don't know your skill level really, or potential skill level. So, I don't know. There's just one or two things that I can just point out, but it's a bunch of things, and it's changed, like I said, through the years. Now they come in and they used to sit down and talk about academics for an hour, and then they talk about their basketball program for an hour. It'd be a 2-hour meeting usually. Now they come in and the first thing out of their mouth is how much they're going to offer you, and money wise, it's all changed. And the day where people could outwork other people, you can recruit a guy for 2 straight months. Somebody comes in and offers him more money one day, and you may lose them. So it's really it's changed a lot, and it's kind of one of the reasons I got out when I was 65. So I wasn't like I was a young guy, but I tell people I got in at the right time and I got out at the right time. So I feel like that was for me, but
Yeah,
younger.
you definitely don't look 65 at all.
Well, I'm 70 now.
Well, 70, so you don't look 70. So, how important do you think a kid's character is versus the talent in today's recruiting world?
I think it's important to some coaches, not all coaches, but I think there are still coaches out there that they go to games, they look at a player and they look at his body language, his attitude, how he responds to his coaches, how he responds to his teammates. That there's still coaches that look at that and feel like that's very important for them. And that's usually the older coach, I think. The guys have been doing it longer. The guys are trying to win right away. I think they want to get the best player, the best talent, and if he's got some issues, they figure like, oh, we'll deal with that when they get here. And whether it works or not, sometimes it does. But I think it's important to some coaches, but not nearly what it used to be. I mean, I used to tell kids that's the most important thing. When I looked at kids to come into Oak Hill, when we had it going really, really well with kids calling me and I wasn't calling them, they were calling me all the time. I was pretty selective. That's what I looked at. I watched kids, tried to, assess how I thought they would fit into our program, how they'd fit in with the campus, the other students, the faculty, how they'd fit with their teammates. Would they be a good teammate? Would they be a teammate you wanted to play with, or one of those guys you don't really want to play with? So, and I'd make decisions on that because I was getting good players. I knew, if it came down to 1 or 2 guys, I'd take the one that I thought would fit in better. And he might not have been quite as good, but he didn't have to be. They were still high major players.
Yeah, I've been doing this 10 years now with prep basketball, and I've noticed a lot of things. We have a pretty rigorous process to come to Experience Academy. We do an interview, we do a family meeting, we do an in-person visit, and also a workout.
Yeah.
But there's always 4 or 5 that slip through the cracks that say they're really about accomplishing their goals and reaching their destinations that just don't quite line up to what you thought they were going to be.
Right.
And it's just I guess that's just how it is in life, like with real jobs. And I always tell kids that if you don't go hard for something you love, something you're passionate about, you're not going to go hard when you have to get a job one day and go hard for your family and put food on the table.
Right.
That this is your time, your window to make something happen. If you had a 15-year-old right now, what would your development plan look like from day one?
As far as a player, I mean, we would we spent a lot of time, like I mentioned, working them out because you got to show them. I mean, the parents want that too. When you talk to a parent about a player coming to your school, they always want to know, who's working them out, how much they're going to work out, besides actual practice time, because they know me as the head coach. When I've got them in practice, I'm trying to make the best team I can make, in that 2-hour window every day, and we don't slight skill work, but we're doing a lot of team stuff, obviously, in practice, offense and defense and so forth. We break things down, but still, it's important to do, and one thing is really important now is weight training, strength training, speed training, agility. They all want that. So I mean, that's probably 50% of what you do now. You want to get them bigger, stronger, faster, and so they can compete at the next level. The ones that are physically ready to play are the ones that play right away. A kid that's a normal high school kid and he weighs 160 pounds or whatever, it's hard for him to compete when he goes in and goes against guys that are been in college for a year or two or even 3 or 4 years. They've got, ready-made bodies already to play basketball at that level. It's important, I think, the weight training and strength training, even the speed and agility, all that stuff is important. And so a balance of everything, with individual workouts, the weight training, your teamwork. Like I say, it's a year-round deal too. I mean, you can take a day or two off here and there, but you pretty much, you're working year-round to be the best player you can be, and so you've got to do that. And it's especially if you want to get to the highest level and play.
Got a couple more questions for you. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah, no problem.
So the first one is, what player success story means the most to you throughout your career and why?
I've had a lot of players come through that maybe overachieved, or players that you thought were not going to be high level players, and they ended up turning into one. And I had a kid when I first got to Oak Hill back in the late '80s, Alex Blackwell. He was from New Jersey. He's about 6'7", and recruited at a low level. Like he was recruited some Division II schools, some low D1 schools. He ended up going to Monmouth, but I knew how hard he was going to work. That guy worked as hard as anybody I ever coached, and I had him 1 year in the summer, and he went to Monmouth College, and he was all league and MVP for 2 years. Ended up playing for the Lakers for 3 or 4 years, in the NBA. So that's one I can think right off the top of my head that overachieved. I mean, he was, a guy that, when you talk about Monmouth, back in the '80s, you didn't know who Monmouth was. They've been to the tournament a few times, and they're a Division I basketball team. But for them to get Alex back then was a big deal. They out recruited some people, and then the guy, the assistant there, Ken Dempsey, knew he was a little better. He and I both knew. I go, this kid's better than everybody thinks. When he took him, and he ended up winning 20 games a couple years in a row because of Alex. Then he goes and plays for the Lakers. So, I mean, I've had guys like that. I've had other guys that Rajon Rondo was a great player in the NBA, but in high school, he was not when I got him, he was probably, I remember seeing a list of the top 15 point guards, and he wasn't one of them in the country. And I had the number 1 point guard in the country wanting to come, but I had already taken Rajon. And when I talked to that kid's dad and told him I wasn't going to take him because I didn't need 2 point guards that I thought were at the same level, he thought I was crazy. Because my son's ranked number 1, And who's Rajon Rondo? Well, lo and behold, we go undefeated that year. Rajon makes McDonald's. I go to the McDonald's game. That father's sitting in the row right in front of me, directly in front of me.
Wow.
He turns around like in the middle of the second quarter of the McDonald's game, and he said, "Coach, you were right." He goes, "That kid can play." Rajon went on to play 19 years in the NBA, and that kid never played in the NBA, not one, not a minute. And he was a McDonald's All-American. So I guessed right on that one. But and Rajon I didn't know how smart he was. He's a very cerebral player. I had no clue that just from watching him, AAU events. I saw him at a Bob Gibbons event down in Chapel Hill, evaluated him. Couldn't even tell if he was a point guard because he was playing off the ball most of the game. And he was playing with Chris Lofton. They had Chris Lofton playing the point, and Rajon was playing the 2. So after the game, the first time I saw him, I said, "Are you a point guard or a 2 guard?" Because I couldn't really tell. And he said, "Coach, I'm a point, but they play me at the 2 on this team." I said, "Okay." So then I go to a couple more games where he's playing more at the point, and I go, "Oh, this guy can play." But I didn't know how smart he was, and how he could read defenses and make everybody on his team better, which is what a point guard's job is. And then he went on to play Kentucky, and went on to play in the NBA. So he's another one that's everybody just think. I think when you say Rajon Rondo, they just figured he was like all world in high school, and he was, but not to the extent where people had him rated highly until his senior year when he came to us, and then he exploded. The team was, like I say, undefeated, and we had a kid, Josh Smith, on that team who went straight to the NBA, and I had NBA scouts coming up practice back then, and almost to a man, they would all say, "Your best player is not the one we're here to look at. Your best player is Rajon Rondo." And I go, "I know that." I said, "But, as good as Josh was, and they're best friends today. They developed a friendship at Oak Hill. Now they're best friends. Rajon was the guy, all the scouts, when they left the gym, they were like, whoa, we love Josh, and we also love Rajon. But Rajon went to college, and Josh went straight to the pros."
Yeah, he had a great career.
Yeah.
Really, really good player. What keeps you motivated at this stage in your life?
I'm still involved with basketball. I retired to spend time with my grandkids and play a little golf, and I play less golf since I've retired than when I was at Oak Hill. So I'm on grandson duty. I've got a 9 and 11-year-old, two boys. I actually coached the 9-year-old's fourth grade team a little bit this year, so that was kind of fun and different. I'm used to coaching guys that run around, 10 guys chasing the ball all the time. Spacing, I try to teach them spacing. It's not easy when the little kids are out there. They all want to run around and get a handoff and shoot it. So, but I still involved with basketball by being the commissioner of the EYBL, and so I go to games. I still get to see the people that I always dealt with. I see coaches that that I knew through the years, and I enjoy that part of it too. I don't, it's more administrative stuff too, but at my age, it keeps me involved in basketball, and EYBL to me is the best high school league in the country, and it's got the best talent. And we just finished the national tournament 2 weeks ago, Chipotle's, and 3 of the 4 teams in the semis were EYBL teams. It should have been all 4. That one team was leading the whole game, so we could have had the whole Final Four, from the EYBL. So that league is very strong, and it's got a bunch of players next year returning that we'll probably have between 10 and 15 McDonald's All-Americans in the league. And all the teams are well coached. They're in situations that their programs are run like college programs, and so the basketball's at a high level. So that I enjoy that too. That keeps me going and keeps me involved in that and my family.
We appreciate you being on here today. Before you go, I'm going to do a little rapid fire with you. You're just going to give me one word to describe each thing before we get off here.
Okay.
So one word to describe today's basketball culture.
Chaotic. You said it earlier.
Best advice you've ever given a player.
In one word? Discipline, probably.
Biggest mistake young athletes make.
That's a good one too. I don't know if I can do that in one word. That's hard.
You can take a couple. You can take a couple.
Yeah, I think not putting the time in.
I like that, not putting the time in. And last one, exposure camps or real gyms, what matters more?
Real gyms.
I'm with you, real gyms. Guys, this has been Coach Steve Smith, Commissioner of the EYBL. Coach, I appreciate our relationship and our friendship. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate
you having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have a blessed day.
All right.